In my 43 years on the bench, I've seen nearly every kind of behavior a courtroom can produce. I've watched men break down in tears, others try to negotiate their way out, some lash out in anger, and a rare few actually come forward with the truth. But never, not once, had I imagined that someone wearing a badge would walk into my courtroom and try to have me arrested. That changed on a bitter Tuesday morning in February. What unfolded that day became one of the most talked about moments in the history of the Providence Courthouse. And if you believe the law applies equally to everyone, including those sworn to uphold it, this story will remind you that justice is still alive. That morning started like any other. At exactly 8:45 a.m., I walked into the courtroom, coffee in one hand and the same leather folder my father gave me when I first became a judge in the other. But something felt different. The room was packed, every seat filled, people standing along the walls. My clerk, Sandra, leaned in and quietly told me there was a special matter on the docket, case number 7349. I looked down and saw the name, James Richardson, 52 years old, charged with contempt of court and obstruction of justice. At first glance, nothing unusual. These cases are typically straightforward. But when I looked up, I immediately realized this was no ordinary defendant. James Richardson was the police commissioner of Providence, the highest-ranking law enforcement official in the city. He stood there in an expensive navy suit, perfectly styled, projecting authority and wealth without saying a word. His attorney, Marcus Webb, stood beside him, clearly the kind of lawyer hired by powerful people to keep them protected. Across the room stood Assistant District Attorney Lisa Chen, talented, sharp, but visibly uneasy. That alone told me this case was far more serious than it appeared. I called the court to order and asked Lisa to explain. She told me that 3 weeks earlier, Commissioner Richardson had interfered in an active criminal case, one involving his own nephew. His nephew, Brandon Richardson, had been arrested for brutally assaulting a man named Michael Torres, a military veteran who had already endured 2 tours in Afghanistan and lived with lasting injuries. The incident was clear-cut. Witnesses, surveillance footage, and even social media posts all pointed to Brandon as the aggressor. He had attacked Torres after a minor accidental encounter on the street, leaving him with severe injuries. But the case took a turn when the commissioner showed up at the police station that night. He demanded his nephew be released. When officers refused, he threatened them, careers, reputations, everything. One officer in particular, Patricia Morales, refused to back down, and she did something critical. She recorded the entire interaction. That recording was played in my courtroom. There was no ambiguity. The commissioner's voice was clear as day, issuing threats and abusing his authority. When I asked him to respond, he didn't deny it. He admitted everything and justified it. He claimed his position gave him the right to control outcomes, including protecting his family. Then things escalated. The prosecution presented additional evidence, messages, social media posts, internal reports, and testimonies from other officers. A pattern emerged. Richardson had been using his power for years to protect certain individuals and manipulate cases. More officers came forward. More evidence surfaced. Then the commissioner lost his composure. He stood up, pointed at me, and began insulting me, my position, my authority, even my background. He mocked my upbringing, my family, and suggested I didn't belong in that courtroom. I let him speak. Then I moved forward. The prosecution introduced even more damning evidence, messages where he dismissed the victim, bragged about influence, and openly stated that rules didn't apply to him or his circle. At that point, federal authorities entered the courtroom. The case had expanded beyond local charges. There was now evidence of corruption, money laundering, and a broader criminal network tied to Richardson. Then came the turning point. His own deputy, Chief Anthony Risen stepped forward and testified against him. He described a department compromised by fear, manipulated from the top. He handed over documents, recordings, and detailed accounts of misconduct. Cornered, Richardson made a final, desperate move. He tried to have me arrested, right there in my own courtroom. He called his department and ordered officers to come take me into custody. We waited. No one came. Instead, he got the answer he never expected. The department no longer recognized his authority. He had already been suspended. Moments later, officers entered the courtroom. Not for me, for him. Officer Patricia Morales placed him under arrest, the same officer he had tried to intimidate. I delivered my ruling. Guilty on all counts: contempt, obstruction, and witness intimidation. I sentenced him to 1 year in jail, effective immediately. I also ordered financial restitution to both the victim and the officer he threatened, along with a formal public apology. Additionally, I required him to complete 1,000 hours of community service at a veterans hospital, working directly with the very people he had shown such disregard for. As he was led away in handcuffs, the arrogance was gone. For the first time, he understood. He was not untouchable. In the weeks that followed, federal authorities formally charged him with additional crimes. His nephew pled guilty, the officers who stood up were recognized and promoted, and the victim, Michael Torres, recovered, and his daughter's health improved as well. That day proved something important. Justice works, but only when people have the courage to stand for it.